Welcome everyone. I'm from the Wild Ones Natural Landscaping LLC nonprofit group. We are here today to film a program. Wild Ones is an organization that promotes education, restoration, motivation, all of those things regarding native plants and restoring native plants to our habitat so that we will also support pollinators, birds, and also the food we eat ultimately. So today we are here planting a tree, a couple of them actually. Oh, and we will put a link to Wild Ones website if you're interested. We love to have new members, and there are many benefits of joining. So wildones.org is the general website. All right, so Jeff over here digging in the dirt. This is Jeff Conte.
Where do you want me?
You're right here is good. Jeff did a program for us on trees. He's an ex-arborist or
Retired forester.
Retired forester from Shaniqua. Works a lot now with DNR, member of Wild Ones. He did a talk on trees and pruning and identifying them in the wintertime when you really need to look at the bark versus looking at leaves and nuts and fruits. So that was actually our last live in-person event, last February 2020. Seems like a long time ago. It was a great program. We had a great turnout. And Jeff very generously donated his speaker fee to plant a tree, of course. And that makes total sense. So we are finally able to get this together to do. We partnered with Johnson's Nursery. Thank you, Johnson's. They sponsor our plant sale in June, and they also are very big proponents of using native plants in natural habitats and in not so natural habitats, in other people's small yards, any kind of place. So we decided that we would donate trees to Woodside Elementary School, which is where we're standing right now. We're standing in a outdoor classroom that's pretty good sized. Peter Dargitz is kindergarten teacher, member of Wild Ones as well, and our connection to making this event happen. Embry, his daughter, is right there. She knows a lot about prairies and woods and helps her dad with the upkeep and signing and all kinds of fun stuff. Finding robin eggs, right? So today we are going to plant a tree. Jeff's going to do a demo. And I know we've all planted, probably all of us have planted trees. However, the success of the tree as it grows and hopefully flourishes really does start with how you plant it. And so Jeff's going to show us the right way of planting a tree to optimize its chance of being successful and good growth.
Maul to pound in the stakes, and I got a wire cutters in case we need to modify your fencing.
Wire cutters, of course.
Red.
Yeah,
thing
plus
in
a
the
little
fall.
yellow.
Really cool.
Wow, that looks really pretty.
That's nice.
So that's going to be nice. And then the second thing is, aspens and willows are the sole food for this plant, for this butterfly. This is the viceroy.
Oh.
This is the mimic plant for the monarch.
The alias.
So this is the viceroy. So this is food for the viceroy.
So it's the aspen and what else?
Aspen and willows.
And willows.
So this is you always talk about your pollinators and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is a good plant for so the larvae need to feed on something, right? So they don't need to always the butterflies grabbing and bees and all that. So the larva has to eat something.
That's even more cool.
So
good choice,
it's an
Jeff.
ecological match for the site.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yep.
Okay.
And it'll spread like crazy.
And I told the kids we're planting trees this week, and their goal on Monday was to figure out where they were.
Oh, really? Well, you think this strange
that might help.
That might
but,
set
you
it
know,
off.
it's
Like, Go ahead.
Oh, good. Yeah, I got that tall one. That is a nice plant.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter, I'm so jealous
Oh,
of
we
all
got a
these
little
little
hickory there.
hickory seedlings.
I know.
They're awesome.
There's a robin egg. Or of a robin egg.
Look at that. Wash it off where you have to wash it off in the laundry. But this is soil, so this is good stuff, not dirt.
Good stuff.
And it's filled with organics and thousands of little pieces of
thousands
mic-
of vitamins for the trees.
yeah, mycorrhiza fungi and stuff like that. A whole ecosystem right here. Like here's this little, what is that thing? It's a little root. Okay, so back to trees. We've kind of laid out a spacing of these are big tooth aspen, and most people would probably think, well, why are you planting big tooth aspen? Because it's really not a common, definitely not an urban tree, because these things, once they're planted in the ground, they tend to spread, and they'll go a long way. So if you're in an urban area, you probably don't want one of these in your yard, because they'll spread throughout your yard, probably into your neighbor's yard, stuff like that. And they'll come up through root suckers in the ground and form a whole new tree. In fact, we'll ask our assistant here, do you know what the biggest tree in the world is? If I said a redwood, would that make sense to you?
I don't know.
Redwoods or sequoias.
Remember our
Redwood, redwood or sequoias, the other
California?
big one?
Those big trees we saw.
I don't remember that.
Okay, here's a, well, okay, we'll say,
Well-
most people would say a redwood or a sequoia. However, the largest organism in the world is actually an aspen. In the forest in central Utah, there's a grove of aspen that is genetically identical, and it spreads over 106 acres. So every tree, every aspen, it's a solid grove of aspen. Every tree is from the one next to it and next to it and next to it. So genetically, it's all one organism. So it's 106 acres of all one plant.
Wow.
So that by volume is the largest plant in the world,
Wow.
and it's all aspens. So take that little thing home with you tonight and quiz the rest of your family.
Oh, we'll do.
So, what else? Okay, so when we're planting a spot, we have to know what the needs are of a tree. This big tooth aspen, as opposed to the other aspen, which is trembling aspen, does very well in upland sites, and we're up on a hill, so big tooth would be a good choice for that. Pretty well-drained soil. If we were at the bottom of the hill, trembling might have been a better choice, because they take moisture better than the big tooth does.
Is trembling the same as quaking? Or is that a different
Yes,
one?
right.
Okay.
Quaking, trembling, Populus tremuloides. That's the one. So the big tooth will get 60, 70 feet tall, something like that. Can get fairly good size in diameter, but it's not like an oak tree. Well, these things, like, instead of growing up, they grow out in number. So you'll see a grove of them. And the one nice thing about big tooth, as opposed to the other aspen, it gets a really nice orange-red fall color.
Do you have those pictures that you have?
I left them back in the car. So I didn't know if you
I got
want-
some before.
Oh, good.
Did you get those? Okay. So also the other nice thing about this plant is that it's a food for a couple insects, like the swallowtail butterfly and the viceroy butterfly, which needs aspens and willows for their larvae to feed on. So without these young plants and aspens and other willows, there's nothing for the viceroy to feed. And the viceroy is the mimic of the monarch butterfly. So if you see one, you look for that little red banding in the lower wing, and if you see that little red marking or that black line, that's the viceroy, not the monarch. So when we pick this spot, we have to make sure there's no utilities here. I'm assured that there's nothing of the sort in this area, which is good. We also have to take, overhead, there's no power lines, nothing to worry about there. And we're not going to create a problem. We have a little trail next to us, so that's going to be a very nice setting. And we're going to create a little grove or a little copse of aspens, so we're set to go. So the first thing we did is we marked out the trees. We kind of laid them out with get a spatial view of it, and we're going to we're going to plant the tree. So we pulled out the sod, and one thing we want to do is, when we dig the hole, there's an old saw, at least in the forestry world, is that when you plant a tree, you put $10 in the hole and $1 in the tree. So most of your effort should be in that hole. So we want to make it wide enough, and we want to make it not real deep. Plants do better if they're planted at grade or slightly above rather than too deep. It's like when kids plant, kids draw a picture, usually you see that nice flare at the bottom. They all do it, and it's by instinct or whatever, but if you look around, all the big mature trees have flares at the bottom. If you're in an urban situation or places maybe where they filled around them, you'll see what looks like a pipe going in the ground. That's bad for the tree. If the tree survives at all, it won't do well. So when we place the tree, that's the whole future of the tree. Probably as much as moisture and nutrients. So when we make this hole, and we'll probably make it just a little bit wider than this, but we're going to make sure that the hole is no deeper than the top of this bucket, and maybe a little shallower. These are root cuttings, so they didn't grow from seed. They came from a root cutting. So it doesn't have the normal root structure that a tree that's planted from seed would have. So normally what I would do, if I bought a tree from a nursery that's in a bag, I would scrape back around and I'd look for those first major roots. And that's when I know that's the surface of the soil that tree should be planted in. When you don't find those, that means through the tilling process at the nursery, maybe some soil got dumped on the top of it. And so you want to remove some of that stuff. So you find that flare, and then that's the top of that should be flush with grade. So in this case, it's a root cutting, so it's not, we won't be able to find those. But we're going to keep this at grade, or maybe a little bit above. So, how we doing over here? Did you get all that dirt out there?
I found some worms and put them in here to.
Okay, we're going to scoop this off to the side so we can use our good soil here.
Put it in there.
So that's about 1 shovel deep. So that's what we're going to go for, and then we're going to use I'm going to break it up a little bit.
It was nice that we had that rain. The ground is,
Nice and soft.
yes.
And the other nice thing is this is not an urban soil. It's rural agricultural soil.
Correct.
So it's not, you don't know what's been added, concrete, whatever.
You mean in the urban soil, you'd expect to find garbage.
You can find garbage, concrete, asphalt,
Yeah.
different layers of soil,
Yeah.
fill.
Fill. Yep.
And then what I'm going to do is the sides are going to taper to the main part of the soil. And we're going to loosen up a little bit because the roots want to go through loose soil, but not a lot of air pockets and stuff like that. So, maybe this is,
Maybe I'll try that.
Yeah.
Really good shape.
And if you want to shake it towards here, that's where the soil that we're going to put back into the hole when we put the
Is
tree
it
in.
okay if there's like a little?
It's okay if there's a
vegetation?
little bit.
I found some moss.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty.
Take off.
Soil and other things. I think we can get a pretty good amount. Clay is part of what the makeup.
we'll probably get into the clay band. Here it is. See, this is our topsoil up here, nice and dark.
Uh-huh.
And see, when we get down here, see how the soil turned a little yellower?
Oh, there's
That's the clay
right
band.
here. How do you get a root?
So this is, we don't want to use this much as we want to use the other soil, because this is really not as,
Wet.
well, it doesn't have the nutrients and the organic material that the darker soil does. So
This is more nutrients,
yeah,
right?
right. So the darker the soil, in this case, the better.
Yeah, so the darker the soil, the
The
more
better.
the nutrients.
Exactly.
And less clay.
Less clay. So when we dig, we'll try to save as much of the dark stuff, and if we have to get rid of any soil at all, we'll get rid of the stuff on the
Yeah.
bottom. That deep, right? I think I'm just there or maybe a little bit below. So I use this
See, we need
as my indicator. So I'm probably very close.
Yeah.
You know, with a pot that big, you can move it in and out. But if that was a bigger tree, you probably get one shot at it.
Who cut
So-
the worm in half?
Oh, I might have done that accidentally. So actually, we're probably,
Don't
I
cut
might
the
even be a
wormies.
little bit too deep, but we'll take it out. But that's a good way of indicating how deep your soil or your hole should be. And if you have to backfill it all, make sure it's nice and dense and pack it in. Otherwise, over time, the tree will settle with the soil. So
Again, not wanting too much,
You don't want it
too
to be
much
too
air
deep,
pockets.
right.
I put
So-
the worms in there.
so actually, we might be a little bit high yet.
I
So
think we have to keep digging deeper.
we have to go a little bit more. So I'll take out that stuff that I just put in here. Okay, I think we're pretty good.
Maybe just a little bit deeper.
No, I don't think we want to go deeper. It's better to go a little higher than deeper. Higher is okay because if you want to, how much science has she had yet?
Oh,
You know
she's,
about photosynthesis
she's
and,
had enough with me.
and respiration? See,
know
the
about-
top of the plant goes through, it goes through air exchange. You know, it pulls in, or releases oxygen and pulls in carbon dioxide.
What does the plant
The
eat,
roots-
Embry?
The plant.
What do we
eats,
talk about? What do plants eat?
Gets nutrients from the sun.
There you go.
It doesn't like
They eat the sunlight.
get eat
So,
sunlight, not the sun.
The leaves need air, the atmospheric air, and the roots do too. So if you plant them too deep, they can't get to that air. So that's why the roots are actually smothered when you plant them too deep.
Hey.
Wow.
So that's why if you go into the forest, some of the biggest trees have the root flare, and most of the roots of a forest are in the top 18 inches. Everything. And even in the 6 inches. So when you think of a tree in profile, it's more, instead of it being a carrot in the ground, it's more like a plate, a very shallow plate. So you'll have a few anchoring roots at the base, but when you go out, all the roots are up at the surface. So that's why soil compaction and erosion is a big deal.
I've learned a few facts about
Have you?
like the trees and how they collect their water to help it grow. So when it rains, they collect the water runs down into the roots and it gives nutrients to the tree.
And then what was that?
The water rushes down into the roots and it gives root nutrients for the trees.
Good job. You're going to be what do you want to be when you get older?
Like a pop singer.
Pop singer.
Well, that's changed.
Pop
I've never heard that
singer.
one before.
Does Dad know about that?
I've heard chef.
Oh,
Oh.
I think you should. You
Chef
you
is the
really
big
know
one.
your nature. You should
Pop
maybe
singer.
get into
Okay, good one.
natural.
Well,
All right, let's see.
you learn something new every day.
Whoa.
Well, and
Yeah,
it'll
it's out of the
change
bucket.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, pop singer, they make good money.
Okay, you
I'm up
push
for it.
down,
Potentially. What
wanna-
do you need here?
push down on the bucket, and I'm going to pull up on the. Wow.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Oh, look at that nice root ball.
Yeah.
To point out these pots, Johnson's Nursery's been using them for propagation for a while now, and it's got holes in it and lines and ridges, and that helps better root development per their head propagator, Ben.
And then
The roots can come out instead of whirling around and around and creating that basically suffocated root ball. So, sign of a good nursery and a good way to grow plants.
scrape off some of that sod. So see, now this was growing around, right? See, it's growing around. Eventually, if we didn't do anything about this, as the tree grows and the root grows, it would, like a boa constrictor, it would strangle the tree. So what we
need
want to
cut that
do
off?
is we're either going to loosen that up and then move it into the hole as we can, or we just trim them off. So we're gonna
I prefer to trim it off.
trim off a couple of these things. And where's our little fork tool? Oh, here it is. And you don't need to be very delicate about this because
Oh, I see some.
Watch your fingers.
Yeah, watch your fingers there. So these are,
So other than kind of freeing some of the roots, is the object to keep the soil intact around the root ball?
well, you think of a lot of trees are sold as bare root.
Yep.
So you don't really, you don't need the soil when you're planting a tree. As long as you add soil to it, you don't want the roots to dry out, of course. And there are things, there's new techniques now, they call them the gravel bed,
Watch out
where
for
trees are
worms.
bare root and they're put into a, like little pieces of stone. And they're planted in stone and then they're kept irrigated. So the roots get a lot of oxygen and they get moisture and they get nutrients from the stuff in the water. So these roots become a very fibrous mat and they're not in any soil at all. They're in this stuff called, well, the gravel, it's called a,
That way it can dig the rest
I
of the
forgot.
hole.
Like, not like vermiculite or?
no, it's regular, it's like pea stone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Interesting. I suppose as long as they have
Yeah.
water, right?
yeah.
The water
You
and
get
the
the
air.
water and they're out in the sun, so the trees and the roots respond like crazy.
Wow.
They become one fibrous mat, and then they can move. If the municipality or whoever orders 50 trees and they only can get 25 in the hole in the ground, they put them in these gravel beds and they store them for weeks, months,
Wow.
and when they so then you can plant it
spider.
really any time of the year. Spider. Cool.
Little guy.
All right, so I think we got most of our big roots, and we're gonna lay them off to the side. We'll stick that guy into the loose soil, so he won't go anywhere. We'll stick that guy into loose soil, and this guy into the loose soil. And we're pretty good on our height, right? Because we measured it. And this, so here's our height. So we're not,
look at that.
we're just a hair over, which is where we want to be. So, and we got enough loose soil around it
So should
where
we
the
start
new
putting
roots will be able to go into it. So at this point, it's just a matter of filling in the soil, making sure it's firm, and then we're going to water it in, and we're going to protect it with some wiring, so the deer don't get at it. And at this point, it's probably up out of their reach, but it's for the winter when the bucks seem to like thin bark trees, and they'll scar them up.
Yeah, so that's why we should put the wire.
So that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Nice.
So should we start putting the...
Now we're going to put some of the soil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a worm in there.
You're gonna-
Fertilizer.
Did you give it a name?
I don't know.
You should.
Come on, Pop Singer.
Wormy.
Maybe you should name it Aspen after the trees we're planting.
Yeah, sure.
You know what the Latin name of aspen is?
What?
It's kind of like you wanted to be a pop rock singer.
Yeah.
Well, it's Populus is the family name, and the species
Wow.
is grandidentata. So another technique or trick to know if the tree is planted too deep is you'll see a lot of trees are grafted in the nursery, so there'll be a swollen area right at the base of the tree where the graft was. When they put a rootstock on the top portion of the tree, and so you'll see a color change at the base of the tree, or you'll see a swelling. And of course, this is from a root cutting that's way down in the ground, so you won't see it here. But just to show you that this color,
You see the different colors.
and that's probably because of the aspen. It's in,
Gray to brown.
and then they add the wood chips above it and stuff like that. But when we do our chips, we'll cover that up. Soil from the nursery yet, and we didn't put any soil on top because it was already at grade. So we don't want to build it up anymore. You know, that would cause a tree to be planted too deep. So we're at grade. We're pretty good. So now we'll just add a little bit of water and some chips and protection, and basically done.
I can get the
Great.
water.
Well, you know, obviously, I don't know, educational-wise, why we put wood chips down. One, it suppresses weeds, so we don't get weeds coming up. It keeps the soil cooler, and it keeps the soil moisture so it doesn't dry out, and in the winter keeps it a little protected from deep driving frost. But a lot of places, especially in commercial businesses through business parks and whatever, they tend to make little volcanoes out of the wood chips. And that's bad for the tree because it holds, the trees are designed to be above ground. So if you put this much wood chips around it, it's not good for the tree. If there's any kind of wound or whatever in a tree, it's just moisture and pathogens get in and stuff like that. So if we're gonna use wood chips, we keep it away from the bottom of the tree and we go out as far as we dare to go, because these roots are gonna go in the future hundreds of feet. So when we put the chips on, stay away from the trunk. Do not do the volcano. That's a big no-no. And I wish 99% of the landscape people that take care of businesses would learn that. But it is what it is, you know, so we can only try to educate. So
Should we
that's,
put the chips down?
yes, you want to help me tip the bucket over?
Yeah.
We're gonna
Sprinkle.
move over a little bit by you. And we're gonna spread a little bit more over here. Okay, now we're gonna keep the wood chips away from the bottom of the tree. And then usually it's like 2 inches, something like that. That's all you need.
Now, if you were going to plant this tree in the fall, you know, October, would you plant it any differently to avoid heaving in the winter? You know, if you're getting it in kind of late in the season.
I don't think so.
Still
No, you
stay with
still
the same
gotta
principles?
maintain that height. That's
Okay.
key. And then if you have enough, like the hole being wide enough that the tree can, you have looser soil, get rid of the sod for competition, which is a big thing. The grass really competes with the tree for moisture, especially when they're young. So if I were planting in the fall, it'd be basically the same.
Okay.
And then of course you got to keep it well watered in the spring to get it through the summer, but in the fall too, especially conifers. If you're going to plant a conifer in the fall, you want to make sure it has enough moisture so it doesn't dry out in the winter, because they're really, if the weather's warm enough, they're still going through photosynthesis.
Oh, sure, because they still have the
Right,
green on top.
because they
yeah.
don't lose their leaves. Right.
Right, yeah.
So I
Good
think
point. Because I bet a lot of
we
people,
still-
I
we're
know,
away
I
from
wouldn't
the
think
base of the
about
tree.
that.
I think all we need now is a little water.
All right.
Water, please.
I'll help.
Okay.
That's a little water.
Don't be afraid to drown that thing. I mean, in our
there we go.
plant area, we see some buckthorn, the invasive shrub that's taking over the woodlands all over the upper Midwest. And so it's small enough now we'll be able to pop it out of the ground with a shovel.
And these smaller ones, if I can add a comment, our chapter has 2 weed wrenches. And they are just that kind of a wench that is used as a lever to pull up the whole root of those trees so you don't have grow back.
And they have a pretty good root system. That's why they do so well. These things, I mean, you know, if you're talking about soil erosion, these things would, you know, no soil erosion or anything until they get really dense, and then nothing else grows on top, and you see nothing but brush up on top and nothing below. As they get older, the top will get more of a bronze color, and the bottom starts getting furrowed. So you get the two kinds of bark. In the top, you can see them from across the field. It's that nice bronze color up on top.
Oh,
And it's really kind of a cool looking plant. I like it.
yeah. Great.
All right, so if we can find our,
I'll get this one in the ground.
Yeah, right there.
here we go.
Watch, don't get too close. Yeah.
Is this all one coil?
Yep.
It is one?
Yep.
Well, did I bring a wire cutter?
You said you did.
I did.
Yeah.
Where did I? Yes, exactly. All right, so let's see, how much do we need to get a circle about that big, right? That's about right.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay, now we're going to cut down the line, just like cutting, like making Christmas presents, right?
Yeah. I always wrap my Christmas presents in wire. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, keep the kids away from it, right? You're like, "Ah,
There you
nobody-"
go. Or the animals from chewing them.
Oh, yeah, I had a dog once.
Oh, here comes
Keep
the
it.
sun.
Here comes the sun.
We'll keep the... Oh, God. All
You got
right,
it in
people.
stereo, dude.
All right, let's kind of work this down. We should have probably, let's work it down into the mulch a little bit. All right. Actually, it worked out pretty well, just like we planned. It's almost like we know what we're
It's
doing.
like a little cut.
Yep. Bury it in there a little bit.
Here we go. We'll use yours there. Just hook these together.
No, the deer won't mess with the tree
You got that right.
if it.
Hopefully.
That's the plan.
Are there any deer up here?
Oh yeah, lots.
Yep.
We have an
Three.
expert.
Yep. So seeing the process is helpful.
And where's our maul at? You know what I didn't bring, I should have, is some zip ties. To,
Oh, that would be an easy
I
way
should
to.
have, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can add that. So you don't like to use the little things on.
I suppose it could,
I find them to just be
yeah,
annoying.
but I've never used them.
That's why I'm interested in what an expert does, because, yeah. But zip ties, that's a great idea.
Zip ties work
Easy
really well.
breezy, yep.
And it's easy to remove,
Yep.
and then you can get in, maybe if there's weeds in there or something
Yep.
like that, you can get at it. So,
Yep.
um,
That's a great idea.
then maybe we could hook some of these things in there. Or Peter, if you have some zip ties, you could come back and put some zip ties
Yeah,
on.
when I come back to do the rest, I can certainly.
So, we've got our tree planted. I learned a lot, actually. I hope everyone does as well. Jeff had a couple of key characteristics, reasons for planting this tree. You want to give us a couple of those? Why this is
Well,
besides what you may.
most people know aspen colors and how
Yep.
they get nice and gold in the fall.
Yep.
And they have that smooth, pale, very pale bark. That's with the quaking aspen. With this aspen, the big tooth aspen, the bark will get a little bit darker, especially at the bottom, and will get a little furrowed, like an oak tree or something like that. But as you go up the tree, the bark becomes more of a bronze or coppery color, and so you'll get a little. It's a nice looking tree. And then in the fall, instead of getting that yellow color, you'll get a yellow to orange to red color of the leaves.
Nice.
So if you know what the musclewood looks like,
Yep. Oh, it's
it
beautiful.
looks a lot like the
Yep.
fall leaf of
Yep.
musclewood. So you
Kinda
get
that flaming red and
the
orange.
red, orange, yellow,
Mhm.
all as it progresses through the leaf.
Yeah.
So it's really it's pretty a stunning looking tree in the fall. So
Wow, great.
um,
We'll look forward to coming back when they grow up a little
hopefully
bit.
it'll be nice. And,
Cakes,
you
and
know,
see
over
how they're
time,
doing.
This
Yeah.
will spread because they'll spread through
Mm.
through root suckers. If they get damaged at all, like if you put a shovel in the ground and you harm the roots, you'll encourage the tree to send up all these suckers. So maybe 5 years down the road, after these have been established, maybe a couple spades in the ground to disturb the roots, and you'll get a lot more suckers. Providing you don't have deer that eat all
That will-
the suckers as they
But
come up.
it
'cause
seems
that
like
will-
it comes up so much that there's a good chance you are still going to end up with a few trees that
Oh,
the
I'm sure.
deer may
Yeah.
not get, which is why we picked this pretty open area here. Peter's working on some of the cleanup on invasives, and this should be a really nice aspen grove here. So, well, thank you, Jeff, for your generosity and your knowledge. We always love
My
your
pleasure.
programs and very much appreciate your involvement with Wild Ones. And
Anything,
thank you,
help
Peter,
out.
for the project you're doing and the education that you're giving to children, the appreciation of nature, especially native plants. And thanks to Johnson's for their donation and for this project. They again donated a couple of the trees, gave us a good deal. So,
And what do they do in June?
so in June, Johnson's has declared June Native Plant Month, and as such, they've partnered with 3 Wild Ones chapters, ours, Milwaukee North, and Southwest Ware, and they give all members of Wild Ones a 40% discount on their native plant stock. And it's beautiful nursery stock size plants, which differs from a lot of native plant sales, which are plugs, smaller plants. Their plants are really beautiful. So they do that as a help in fundraising. It's our major source of funding, actually, is our annual plant sale with them. So thanks to their generosity, we keep surviving, which is great. But they also keep encouraging people, not just Wild Ones, but general public, to take a look at the native plants. See what you might be able to put into your yard to incorporate a couple of native plants. Milkweed is like one of the most valuable, of course, but you don't have to get rid of everything you have, but just add some native plants, plant native plants. And thank you all very much for watching tonight.